Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video. As the title says, today I'm doing a how to choose the right college for you. I wanted to make this video because I know it's around that time of year when all the colleges are releasing their acceptance letters for those of you going into their freshman year of college. Depending on what deadline you applied by and obviously when the school releases their acceptance letters, it's just about that time of year, so I figured I would make this video. And if you're new to my channel, my name is Megan. I'm a freshman studying nursing at Arizona State University. So I obviously went through this whole process last year and I gathered a few little tips and tricks for how to choose the right college for you. So with that said, let's get right on into the first tip. Tip number one, I want to stress financial boundaries and financial abilities when it comes to paying for college and choosing the right college for you. For me personally, I was not going to take out student loans to go to college. I just wasn't going to do it. Luckily, I had the financial ability to not go into student debt and take out loans. I do have my parents helping me out. I do have scholarships, and I did pay for my first semester at Arizona State University. But one of the biggest reasons why I chose to stay in-state was because obviously in-state tuition is much cheaper than going out of state. And personally, I believe that it's the same education, it's just more expensive elsewhere. Obviously that's a little bit different when you get to Ivy Leagues or whatever, or if you're going to med school, probably a little bit different. But for my undergraduate, I really value financial stability, and I really did not want to take out loans to go to school. And like I said, I'm really fortunate in the fact that I did get scholarships and I did have my parents help me through, and I did have savings that I could put towards education. But I do think it's really important to kind of know what you expect financially from a school. Obviously, like I said, college is not cheap at all, so being able to know what you're willing to afford and are you willing to take out debt and take out loans, that kind of thing. And also knowing your scholarships. I know for Arizona State University, and I'm sure other schools did it too because I looked up a few, but you can plug in your SAT score, your GPA, whatever, your in-state, out-of-state, whatever, and it'll show you kind of what you can expect to get in terms of merit scholarships from the school. So kind of doing your research into how much money you're going to get towards your education can help you figure out how much money you're going to actually have to pay for an education if you go to X school versus Y school. So that can help you kind of weed out certain schools. And then for tip number two, knowing geographically where you want to be in terms of weather, location, etc. For me, I lived in Arizona before I went to school at ASU. So I obviously like the warmth. I'm not a fan of the cold, so I knew that I did not want to go to school somewhere where it was going to be cold and where it was going to be snowing all the time. Not what I wanted to do. And that was pretty much the first thing that I looked at when I was picking my colleges, even when I was just researching colleges, colleges that were in places that I didn't want to live, I didn't even bother looking at. And for me, I grew up in the Midwest, so I did not want to go to college in the Midwest. I didn't want to go to the East Coast because cold and then also humid, so I didn't want to do that. So pretty much left me with the Sun Belt and then the West Coast in terms of colleges. So knowing where you don't want to live is going to be helpful when it comes to weeding out certain schools, and also in terms of where you don't want to live. This might be a little bit further down the line, but looking at where you want to live after college. I say that because it's really important to make connections while you're in college and to have resume boosters, essentially, get your internships, get your jobs while you're in college, because those experiences are going to set you apart from other competition when you're going to apply for a job. So for example, if you want to live in New York, you want to work in New York after college, I would recommend going to school in New York because you're going to be able to make connections with people that are going to know people in New York, essentially. You're going to be able to get your foot in the door when it comes to applying for a job after college. So I feel the geographical category has a lot in there, whether it's just simple things oh, I don't want to live in the cold, or oh, I don't want to live where there are hurricanes, that kind of thing. And then furthermore, kind of thinking down the line of where would I potentially want to have a career after college, because that's going to be able to help you get those opportunities if you're living in that state and you're making those connections in that area that you want to eventually live in. If you have a major in mind, look at schools that are good for that major. I know for me, one of the reasons that I chose Arizona State University was because of the way that the nursing program was structured compared to all the other nursing schools that I looked at. The structure just made a lot more sense to me, and it was a better program in my opinion than some of the other schools that I looked at. So if you have an idea of what your major is going to be, or if you have an idea of what field you want to go into, being able to pick a good program in the terms of like, oh, they have a good science program, or oh, they have a really great department of like English or political science, or they have a really good, you know, set of resources for this career or that career, or maybe they don't have those resources. Like, having an idea of what you want to do can be beneficial. However, I want to stress that it's not necessarily imperative. I know a lot of college students change their major, or they don't know what major they want when they go into college. So it's not necessarily imperative, but if you have an idea of what major you want, obviously I think that touring a college or looking at a college in terms of your major is going to be very important for building connections, having certain resources available to you, and just your overall experience in terms of like your education. So once again, if you don't know your major, that's totally fine, but if you do, I recommend kind of using that knowledge to benefit you in terms of picking a good program for you. For tip number 4, consider the type of school that you want to go to. So obviously there are like hundreds of different types of schools across the US, and then obviously like outside of the US as well. So that's something to consider. Like, do you want to stay in the US? Do you want to go to a different country for schooling? Do you want a huge college? Do you want there to be tons of people? Do you want a small college? And also consider along with that like sports. I know some colleges, like some of the smaller private colleges or whatever, may not have like a really big sports environment. So if you're the type of person that like really wants to like go to football games every weekend and like really wants to like be like a huge like sporting person in college, like maybe not going to a school that's going to be super small, maybe depending on their athletic program or whatnot. So kind of thinking about those types of things, you know, size, location as well, in the terms of like, do you want it to be more of a city, urban location? Do you want to be more of a rural location? Based on your preferences. So like if you love like going shopping and going to different music festivals, or you know, city life, obviously going into a school that is located within a city would be probably a good preference for you, versus someone who likes to go hiking all the time, or be more outdoorsy or one with nature or whatnot. Like maybe more of a rural college that isn't located in the heart of the city. So thinking about those types of things can also help you kind of find a good college for you. And like I said, I know that some of these things may seem super small in the moment. You're like, oh, like what does it matter if it's like in the city or in like, you know, far away from the city? Like it's gonna matter when you're there, because it does apply to your college experience. I live in downtown Phoenix currently, so like it's obviously not, it's more of a small campus compared to ASU's main campus in Tempe. But that was something that I kind of did want. I wanted more of a smaller campus, but I still wanted that big like ASU culture, if that makes sense. So that can definitely play into a big part of your experience, just like where you're located and like what is like your surrounding area like. That can really be a big part of your college experience, and like what you're going to do on a Friday night, like based on where you're living. For tip number 5, I really suggest, after you've kind of narrowed it down a little bit, I suggest going and touring your college options. Obviously, that can be a little bit expensive depending on where your options are. Like if you're going to have to travel like all over the US to go see colleges, that can be very, you know, expensive. So I kind of recommend doing this kind of like later on in the college decision process, because it can be expensive to travel to all these colleges, and then obviously hotels or whatnot. But if you can do it, I really do recommend it, because for the most part, you're going to walk onto campus and get a feel right away, like, is this the school for me? Is this not the school for me? Does it click with me? Is this going to fit like what I want? I know when I was between my last 2 schools, it was Arizona State University and then another Arizona school. I toured both of them. I fell in love with ASU. I really loved the campus and everything. However, it didn't look like the colleges that I saw on TV, in a sense. Like it didn't have that college look. It was more of a modern college campus, if that makes sense. Just the way the buildings looked and everything. It wasn't like a cohesive like red brick college feel, you know. But then everything else I loved about it. And a few months later, I toured the other option that I was kind of going between, and it had that college look, and I loved how pretty it was and like just the look of everything. And it was like the smallest thing that I was just like, oh, like this is not school. I was on the tour, and the tour guide stopped at the steps of one of the buildings, and he gathered around some of the people that were students of the college or faculty, and they all sang the fight song. And as they were singing the fight song, I was like, I'm never gonna sing that song. Like that's not, like I just can't see myself singing those words. And it seems like so small, but like honestly, like right away I was just like, that's just not it. Like it's just not the school for me. Like it's really a beautiful campus, like it's super nice and pretty here, but it's just not the school for me. And I feel like a lot of people kind of have the same experience in the sense that like they would tour colleges and then like this one would be like it, and then like the other one would just be like, no, I'm not, that's just not for me. So I think when you're touring a campus or college and you're walking around, I think you get a really quick answer to whether or not this is going to be, you know, the place for you. So I do really recommend going and touring a college because I think you're going to get a really quick answer to whether or not you love it or hate it, or if it's maybe. But yeah. Tip number 6, this kind of goes in the geographical category a little bit, but I put it in a separate one just because it is a little bit separate. Knowing how far from your family you want to be. I know people that were on both ends of the spectrum when it came to this, who chose colleges because it was further away from family and they wanted that independence or whatever, and then people that chose colleges that were closer to family because they really wanted to be close to the family. So kind of knowing what you want in regards to that, I think, is kind of important. Also being able to think ahead a little bit, because when you go to college, it can be a little bit lonely at first and you can get that homesick feeling. So I feel like knowing yourself and like knowing kind of your values in terms of family and like what you want in terms of family relationships can be helpful when choosing a college. I know for me, I specifically chose ASU because it was close to my family and I did want to stay close to my family. And I knew people that chose colleges because it was farther from their family for whatever reason. So whatever reason you may have, being able to kind of differentiate between like, do you want to be super close with your family like geographically, or do you want to be kind of further away from your family in a physical sense? Like that has really nothing to do with like your connection with them or your relationship with them, but more so with like, do you want to be near them all the time? Do you not want to be near them all the time? And I know for a lot of college students, they kind of lean towards the latter, just because college is like a fun, exciting experience for you to like get out into the world and like kind of make a name for yourself and be independent and really like live by yourself for the first time. So I know a lot of people that kind of lean towards that latter option of like kind of moving further away from family just to kind of find themselves, which is totally fine. And like I totally get that. I was not that way. I really wanted to be with my family, and like I have a younger brother, so I really chose to like be close so that I could like hang out with him and like go to all the sporting events so that I could like cheer him on or whatever. Like those types of things I think are kind of important to kind of think about before you choose your college, because I feel like that can affect maybe like happiness levels while you're at college, depending on, you know, what you choose and your type of personality. Right, that is it for all my tips and tricks. I know they're pretty short and there's only like 6 of them or so, but I do think that they were really helpful. Those are what I used to kind of guide me through my college decision. I did want to say that for the most part, it's going to be really like a gut feeling for you. Like you're going to be able to feel like what isn't right, and like I said with the last tip, like you're going to be able to feel right away like, you know, is this right for me, is it not for me? And also I want to say that you're going to end up where you're supposed to end up, so don't stress too much. You will find the right college for you. Just put in a little bit of research and a little bit of effort to try to figure out, you know, what you want and really know yourself too. A lot of these tips kind of boil down to just knowing yourself and knowing your personality and knowing kind of what you want. So being able to identify like what you value and like what your priorities are in terms of like education and in terms of location and resources and programming and whatnot can be so beneficial for you. And I also just want to say good luck, and you will find the perfect college for you. And with that said, I will see you in the next video.